Rabbi Studios BK. We have Imam Bryant, Rabbi Perry here with us, and we are back by popular demand. Shout out to Rustic for hosting us last time as we had a great conversation about race, religion, and all its complexities as it relates to being a black man. So first of all, how you fellas doing? How y'all feeling? We back. The people wanted it. They asked for it. How y'all feeling?
We're gonna give the people what they want, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, as just a reminder, a recap, a refresher for those just tuning in for the first time. First and foremost, go watch part one right now, and then come back and watch this. Just give the people a breakdown of who you are, where you from, and a little bit about what you do.
I'm Gareth Bryant. I'm a professional clinical chaplain, counselor, therapist. I specialize in wellness, advocacy, suicide awareness, suicide prevention, sexual abuse awareness, sexual abuse prevention, gang and crime awareness and prevention, and all of that stuff in between. New York native, and you'll get a chance to learn more about me as we go on.
Very interesting guy. Rabbi?
Yeah, Rabbi Anderson Perry, originally from Arizona, lived in Los Angeles, been in New York for close to a year now. And yeah, I'm a rabbi of the Chabad Lubavitch movement. And, we specialize in outreach, and one aspect besides my particular communities that I've been in, I also have work with several organizations, but started my own organization as well called Kamocha that is basically a resource network and whatnot for people of the Orthodox Jewish, practice who have black ancestry.
Mm-hmm. So one of the reasons we wanted to bring these brothers together is because we thought to ourselves, yes, as a black man in America, that we have our own path, our own journeys, our own relations to what it is to be a black man, right? And religion plays a big part of that. So part of that is about learning about each other. But before we get into the deep stuff, because we got into some great stuff last time, right? Let's get into something a little lighthearted, right? So the big thing right now, Kendrick versus Drake. And before we get into that, first of all, I heard the rabbi, we'll talk about that. I heard the rabbi does a little music too, so we'll talk about that. But the reason I want to bring up Kendrick and Drake, not just who got the best bars, things like that, right? A big part of this whole conversation in the battle has been about Drake. Now, if you don't know, Drake is half white, half Jewish. I'm not half, I guess it's like quarters, right? And then he has a black father, right? And a lot of people have been questioning his ability, and even, Kendrick called him a colonizer, right? Because we spoke about it last time, which actually got a lot of views, Rabbi, when you talked about how some of the Jewish music owners and corporate conglomerates have so much say-so in the black community, right? And so that's been something they've been getting on Drake about. So I want to hear your thoughts on not only the rap beef from the hip hop perspective, but do you think the criticism of Drake and him not, being hood enough to be taken serious should have some validity in this conversation?
So yeah, personally, I think I wish I remembered who said it, but one of the things that somebody mentioned that I thought was a really good point was that what Drake lacks is literacy in black culture. So they feel like his ability to really navigate and represent that is lacking. So especially to go up against Kendrick Lamar, anybody who feels that kind of way, it's going to be magnified in that in that bout between these two. Are we not talking about the rap stuff?
No, let's get into the rap, because we heard the rabbi. You got some balls too. I mean, come on, we go viral. So. Let's get into the hip hop part of it as well too. Like
so obviously Kendrick Lamar is like the rapper's rapper. You know what I mean? So it was when Drake went up against Meek Mill. Just as a background, I'm personally not a big fan of Drake's. Just his music. I mean, I appreciate just like I can appreciate an artist that I may not particularly listen to a lot, can still appreciate. I appreciate his artistry, and a lot of people, have a problem with him being like a chameleon. They say a rap chameleon and whatnot. I think when he does take on, which like Kendrick called him a colonizer, he takes on other people's musical culture and then applies it to himself. I think he executes it well. I do, and the numbers show that and whatnot. I personally not a huge fan of his work, but I will say when he went up against Meek Mill, Meek Mill became famous because he was like one of those Philly battle rappers. That was his thing.
Yeah.
So for Drake, and he even said like I'm a singer and you got bodied. You know what I mean? It's like when somebody who you don't expect to even be in the competition with outdoes somebody that was really like how they got on. That's a bigger W and a bigger L for Meek Mill in that situation. It wasn't just like two rappers went at it and one kind of got the upper hand. Pusha was like an interesting situation, but
Pusha slaughtered.
Well, he came out with the whole, I don't know if you hiding your kid from the world or your world.
But so that's like informationally he killed Drake.
And
But
Pusha's a real street nigga too, so you gotta take that into consideration.
So like I didn't feel like I expected more from Pusha, honestly, just as he was more of a rapper. So I also expected more from him, just like I expected more from Meek Mill in that battle. So I didn't feel like, I felt like, informationally he killed Drake, but I was kind of disappointed. I was expecting Pusha to really put it to him, like, you know what I mean? But with Kendrick, it's kind of the same thing. The reason why Kendrick's W was so major was because the song he did with Mustard, Not Like Us, was on it outperformed Drake.
It was a West Coast banger.
First of all, it was a West Coast banger, which I think, not so much in Kendrick's library do you hear so much like that kind of like West Coast type of stuff. So I was, being from the West, I was a huge fan of the song, but, just the style and everything like that. Actually, honestly, never actually heard the whole song. I heard the instrumental because people were sending it, over and over. But so I loved that. I loved the style of it. I heard some of the bars that he said, and I felt like the song was great. But most importantly, what it did, it was more successful it performed better than Drake's work, which is the bigger W. Even even besides the bars, the fact that he outperformed Drake, and that's Drake's thing, is that he's the performer. He's the successful one. So for Kendrick, who was successful, but not as successful as Drake, for his song that is a battle song against Drake to outperform Drake, you get what I mean? So it's like one of those. Anyway, so I found that whole thing very interesting. Also, people coming at Drake is very interesting. I don't think it's because he's Jewish. It could be that it has something to do with it, because people, point out the fact that J. Cole is also biracial. So why are people not going so hard at J. Cole?
That's a good point.
But J. Cole is from the element. He grew up in that element, so he has the literacy, in black culture that I think Drake at least appears to not have as strong as J. Cole. So I actually didn't find it to be. Also, he just did a song with Alchemist. Alchemist is a Jewish guy from Beverly Hills. I mean, if it was really about him being Jewish, I don't pick that up from this situation, and
I think it's more, and you can speak to this, Imam. I think it's more we have this thing in our culture where are you black enough, right? Because we know there's so many different types of quote unquote blackness and how you were raised in different neighborhoods, and often in hip hop we have this notion that you got to be from the quote unquote hood, from the elements. You had to grow.
You got to be from the turf.
Yeah, you had to struggle. Right? Otherwise, there's no validity to who you are, right? So you could touch on this. What's your thoughts on it, Imam?
Well, number one, in terms of ethnicity, in terms of considering someone quote unquote not white enough or not black enough or not this enough or not that enough, Allah actually mentions in chapter 33, verse 5 in the Quran, Surah Al-Ahzab, chapter of the partisans, Allah says, "Ud'u bi abaihim." Allah says, address them via their fathers. This is pertaining to patriarchy, patrilineal genealogy. The command that Allah gives is to address people as their fathers are. Like, in other words, like ethnically, culturally, whatever your fathers are, that's who you are. So by virtue of Drake having an Afro-American or Afro-Canadian father, that makes him Afro-American. Just like Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate's father is Afro-American, right? And there's a lot of people like that. But because of the concept of race and racism, which ironically the concept race in terms of identifying people is a manifestation of white supremacy by default, by definition. It's a modern form of the caste system, whereas you literally permanently lock people into certain spaces because of hair type, skin complexion, this, that. So for someone to claim that, oh, Drake ain't black enough, that's a weak, not even a weak argument. That's a pseudo narrative. That's a mythos. That's number one. And then number two, you have to take into consideration Drake is not American. So the hood politics and the hood dynamics in a place like Toronto, Canada, obviously it ain't gonna be the same flavor and wave as New York City or Chicago or Philadelphia or Miami or LA or Houston or Seattle. It's not the same. They not cut that way. They cut different. And I'm not saying there's no people that don't really give it up in Toronto or Montreal, but just like Kendrick Lamar said, they not like us. And that's really the point of Kendrick Lamar having that in the song. That's really the point that he was saying. Like, he's basically saying that Drake is from another country, quite literally another country, and he's trying to have supremacy over a culture and a music that comes from a culture that was incepted in another country. It's just like that's like somebody from the UK, right? They could be really like, let's take for example Stormzy. Stormzy is a dope rapper, right? That would be like Stormzy trying to step in the US and try to monopolize the rap market. It's not happening because he's from the UK. In spite of his rap skills, like, make no mistake, Stormzy is a dope rapper, but you can't just not be from the soil or from the turf and expect to have supremacy over a music, over a culture, and you're not even from where that music genre originated. That's the point that Kendrick Lamar was making.
That's dope.
Well, let me correct myself. That was one of the points that Kendrick Lamar was making. Also, again, going back to Drake, not no tough nigga. I'm not saying he's a chump, but he's not a street dude. He's not from the turf. He's not from that. And that's another point that Kendrick Lamar was making. Is like he's not from the soil. He's not from the turf. He's not from neighborhood. He's not that. You know what I'm saying? But also, and it's become very hypocritical because people favor certain people based on marketability. Like, classic example, Rick Ross. Rick Ross ain't no street nigga at all. He was a CO. And he wasn't even a corrupt CO. He was a straight-laced.
Well, let him tell her that's how he got the work in.
That's his claim. But 50 already exposed him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, but people take Rick Ross seriously in terms of how he projects his gangster in his lyrics. And don't get me wrong, Rick Ross is a
good rapper.
He's a dope rapper. I rocks with Rick Ross, but Rick Ross ain't that. He's perpetrating a fraud, just like mad rappers perpetrate frauds. It's a known fact that the average rapper never had a criminal record prior to being a rapper.
That's very true. That's very true.
This is just straight fact.
I don't mean to cut you off. I wanted to pivot because you said something where the Quran mentioned you are who your father is.
Right.
So I want to that made me think about something as we get deeper into the conversation. So Rabbi, how many kids do you have?
5.
5 kids. Do you got any kids, Imam? First of all, shout out to Rabbi. Happy Father's Day was last week. And just an excuse to take the shot, right? Cheers, y'all. A good show. Black Men's Brunch, too.
For my haters, this isn't alcohol. This is Dr. Pepper, a.k.a. Halal Hennessy.